ngalo olaqhoboza imini nelanga. Imfazwe yobuthongo yanga singafela zambini kwenkwesi dizileqe zontathu.
For the LGBTQI community. The L for the lesbians, G for the gays, the B for the bisexuals, the T for the trans. You can ask me what trans is. And the I for the intersex, and the Q for the queers. Any questions?
I'm not so clued up on the terminology and this idea of identifying as queer. What does it actually entail? Like, what does it mean for you to identify as queer?
For me, I can tell you, but I know it's also a fluid description because I find that it's quite political. I was at a feminist conference with a woman who identified as queer because she was being like cutting edge about it. And I think she's somewhere borderline being fluid, né? But she's a woman who normally dates women, but won't deny the fact that she can be attracted to a man. So I'm queer because what if there's a new sex that comes tomorrow and aliens, we can have sex with them? I am queer. né? If you come here and you're green and you have no particles in your pants, what if I want to kiss you, you know? So that's why I call myself queer. né? And intersex beings and human beings who are people who get treated very terribly are born with unidentifiable sexual organs, which means the doctor decides if you're a girl or a boy and influences the parents to have this type of surgery. And then later in life, you find that men start menstruation out of their asses and penises. And you find that women are gay, you know, because now, then the parents didn't tell them, oh, we actually chose your gender, you know. So intersex, I mean, I know, I've got a friend from Zimbabwe who's intersex, and she hates that question. What's your gender? She doesn't know, you know. So, you know, even like in the bathrooms, we should be a bit more sensitive, you know. So that's the beret. Any questions? More? Anyone? Cool.
So,
Yes, Mama.
would you say you are more of a person who's gender non-conforming?
No, I'm female.
You know.
I agree with my vagina and my boobs.
Okay.
I love that I'm a female. I just happen to love other females sexually. And I have had sex with men. It's been great. I've been attracted to trans men and women. It's been confusing. You know, not sure, do I wear a strap on? Are you a man? Am I a woman? What's that? No, you know, so we have sex talks. And aliens are coming, hopefully. Yeah. So no, I conform to my gender, and that means that I'm a cis woman. The term for if you agree with your body and your brain that you are in the right body, that you don't need another identification, I'm a cis woman. Yeah.
What do you how do you approach institutions, or have you approached institutions to help them with addressing their amenities that they provide? So let's say public bathrooms. Do you think that institutions should promote a neutral, like gender neutral bathrooms? Have you been doing that? What has your success rate been if you have been doing that? Do you think that at the University of the Free State, for example, it can be done and it should be done? And so maybe you can tell us.
Institutions, what about doing institutions? This institution, the Science and Liazi, myself, has approached other institutions, like the University of the Free State. And at the previous sex talk, we were allowed to gender neutralize the bathroom at the event. I know that it's law for institutions to choose their position on neutralizing their bathrooms. So I think institutions themselves need to address their position. You see, it's not about decisions on individuals. Do you understand? Because institutions, according to our constitution, they've got that position, you know. So they mustn't say how much does it cost to change the sticker, you know. And also, it comes also with a informing, the students. At the previous sex talk, we worked with the Gender and Equity Office, and what they're working on is sensitizing the security guards, just even with your student card. Né? So if you're trans and you like a boy there on your student card, but you come all like flag up, looking all fabulous, and that they need to know how to treat you. And because there've been lots of situations where people couldn't write their exams because of this trans situation. And it doesn't just end with the bathroom, it doesn't just end with being able to write your exam. It actually starts with even entering the institution and being able to open a bank account, and being able to go to home affairs and changing your status, Myself, I don't know what authority or power you think I'm coming from, but as a blogger, we do sex talks, and I don't know what the power is, but I've been fortunate enough to be invited to talks and conferences where we're trying to assess the situation, and influence like the gender activity and sexual activity, safety in places. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
There is one. There is a gender neutral bathroom on campus or at the UFS. There is one. Yes. One. Just one.
Yeah.
I've got a question, quite a serious one. I don't know if it's a confusion or something, but I have, I'm talking about myself, I have this tendency whereby I'm attracted to men, but I can't help seeing a good lady. And I'm not talking about complimenting as a chick or complimenting. I literally get turned on. And I ask myself, what is it? Don't I know who I am, or what is it? Or do I want to have the best of both worlds? Or?
Are you bisexual?
I don't know.
You decide for yourself, but the term that's written in the dictionary for what you're describing is that you're possibly bisexual or fluid, but other people don't have to tell you what you are. You just decide what you are. And whoever you're attracted to, it doesn't matter whether they've got a penis or vagina. Because we leave love out of this whole issue.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like who don't have sex, who don't have sex, but we skip the part like who do you have genuine connection with, So I think let's just start there, but I'm not gonna. No, it's not. It's not at all. I think at home we need to just be taught like, how do I genuinely feel for somebody? And can I trust that feeling, that it's sincere? And can I receive it from another person and believe it? It doesn't mean I have to try. It doesn't mean just because I'm attracted to both men and women, I must try all of them. It means I must know how to trust my own feelings and how to receive other people's intentions towards me. It's like a radar. We're all over 18. We're allowed to drink and drive. Be able to know who.
But when you're very new to something like that, I've always been an open book. I like expressing, but it's been happening for this past 2 years. I would ask myself, Kiki, what's wrong with you? Because I would see a good-looking guy walking, and I would be attracted. And then a day later, here it comes. Even at work, they started asking me, are you sure you're not lesbian? I said, no, I'm not lesbian. But I can't help it if a good-looking woman passes by.
I forgot something. There's someone from the Human Rights Commission who should be sitting with us here on stage.
Well, I work here because this is something that I love to do. Public interest law, and especially women's rights, my main interest. But here we deal with all rights and the Bill of Rights, and I just really like doing something meaningful. My sexuality, I am going to keep that to myself.
The theme for today is sexual harassment in the workplace. And I hope there's people here with questions. Say maybe you shagged your boss, or kissed your boss, outside of the office, inside the office, under the desk, whatever it is. So you're gonna answer those questions for us, man. Like if you're gonna get arrested or fired for that kind of thing. You see?
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Sam, you're a heterosexual man, right? Oh, now that I've explained fluidity, do you think maybe you've seen a man one day? I'd turn around for this guy. I'd just turn around and see what happens. Has it happened?
No, not really. I think I'm purely heterosexual. I've always been attracted to women.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are men. In terms of expressions, I'm quite easy.
Yeah.
If I see a charming looking guy, I'll say that guy looks very nice.
Yeah.
Half the time, I'll see people dressed in a different way, and I'll say that guy is dressed in a different way. I like the way he's dressed.
And it doesn't inflict on your own masculinity. You can compliment a guy without being worried that.
I think it's called homophobia.
That's it.
It's just fear of expression of interest or of expression of gratitude to the next gender. It's normal, especially in our black societies. We do not compliment men. It's normal for ladies to kiss when they meet, and it's very abnormal for men to hug when they meet. So it's simply termed homophobia.
Mari, what's your sexuality? Are you fluid?
No, no. No, she's a way confusing.
Yeah?
No, I don't know anything. No, after speaking to you, I realized I don't know anything about anything, so I can't really answer that. I don't know myself well enough, at least.
Okay, so okay, actually, this is the thing that's happening. A friend of mine was here from Australia, and in his passport, there's a separate gender that you can put in. You can say you're Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, or you can say other. You're othering with aspect. It's all good. It's okay. Sam works at a publication newspaper, and there was an incident at work that had him suspended, which was sexually related in terms of what happened. And I was like, what, Sam? That happened? And I don't like to vilify men, So tell us what happened, Sam.
Okay, first and foremost, I'm grateful to be here. It's difficult for me to speak about such. I'm in the presence of people that are quite familiar to myself here. One, I need to express that I have not been paid to be here. Two, I'm not here for fame. I'm not here because I want your actions or shame. I'm actually here, and the audience that I'm needing to speak to, I see it's not here. I'm needing to speak to young men who are entering the work field about my incident, which almost changed my life. It would actually be easier if you ask me questions, then I can answer from that. Just to cut a very, very long story short, I have worked for more than 15 years, I think, and my employer has known me for more than 14 years. There was an incident that was recorded, or a series of incidents that were recorded over a period of about 6 weeks. It was sexual advances or friendly advances, not literally sexual advances, but friendly gestures that were expressed at work, and those gestures were later used against me as incidents of sexual harassment. So that's where I am. It's past me now. I think it's about 3 years behind me. It's quite a dicey event to talk about. It's a very personal issue. I'm still not sure if I'm comfortable to speak about this in public. But it happened to me. If you want to ask questions, please shoot. I'll try to explain everything that happened out of questions.
A woman said that you were trying to shag her, and because you're the boss, you got into trouble.
Okay.
That's the.
What had happened was I was in a managerial position, in a training position, and I was in a position of allowing my subordinates to shadow me. So basically they would walk around with me or drive with me, and then they would duplicate, or they would actually learn as I'm doing what I'm doing. So what had happened was I happened to drive with a lady to Botshabelo and Tabanchu, and she was smart, man. She was very young. I think she was 19 years old. And she recorded these incidents and everything that happened. I remember sitting in a car one time looking at a movie trailer, and she said, "What are you watching?" And I said, "No, I'm watching a trailer of a movie." And she said something to the effect of, "Are you going to watch it?" And I said, "Definitely I'm going to watch it because, okay, I have an illegal way of getting movies, so yeah." Apart from that, I go to the cinema if I cannot get a bootleg one. So she said, "Would you mind if I come with you to the cinema?" I said, "No, I don't think your parents would allow that. One, you are 19, my daughter is half your age, I don't think it's appropriate." And she said, no, it's fine. I'll use your phone to call my parents. I'm sure they'll approve." That's exactly as she said it. Later, a similar incident was exactly that same incident. It was used around in a sense that I asked her to go out to the movies with me. The last incident that was recorded, this lady said I gave her a hug in my office and I actually lifted her by her feet. Fortunately, I'm not a very praying man, but fortunately there was one lady who witnessed it. And she said to her, "Choma, if your intention is to destroy this man's future," she said, "I'm definitely not with you." She said, "It did not happen the way you're explaining it." My sexual preferences were put to the test. I was into commissions of, not necessarily, I was into disciplinary hearings. I was suspended, I was demoted. That's how bad it got. Fortunately, because of a testimony of one person, she stood there and said, "That is not the way it happened." Because of a testimony of one person, I remember that day I stood in church and I prayed for those people that worked, and I said, I really, really prayed for them and I wanted God to bless them, their families, their bad intentions and everything. And I fainted in church that same Sunday.
You fainted?
Yes.
You fell down. How many seconds?
I don't know. I just saw black. And yeah, the next Monday there was another hearing, and that's when a friend of hers, and who happened to be a colleague of hers, actually testified and said it did not happen exactly the way you are saying it. She said, "I don't know what your intentions are, but you're just tying this man to something that he did not do." And based on that testimony of one person, I was let go. My employer came back and tried to apologize to me, made me forget, or told me to forget that there was ever a record of that happening at work. But yeah, that's in a nutshell how it happened. Like I said, I'm not here for the ladies, I'm actually here for the younger men, people who are entering the work field. There will be sexual advances that will be put forward to you. It's difficult to walk or to work with checking your back all the time, looking at advances that can be turned the other way around. It's very difficult to work like that. But for young men out there, they need to be careful. It is going to happen to them. If it happened to me, it's going to happen to somebody else. Then I'm more than welcome to, please ask me questions if you want to know my story. I'm very uncomfortable relating the story. I was sharing it with Nosana over a bottle of wine, and yeah, she said, "Would you mind sharing it?" Okay, she said, "Would you mind sharing it with other people?" And I said, "If it's a bunch of guys, definitely I would love to do that."
I just want to know, after the incident, how is your relationship with your female colleagues from that point there on? Are you now, like the way I'm hearing you censoring your actions, maybe your speech, and everything else in between? How's your relationship with your female co-workers?
My relationship with my female co-workers now, it's a very difficult one. Painfully, they are paying for her actions. I'm a very social person. I'm a very loving person. In my line of work, I've done training, I've done mentoring, I've done so many things, and it needs people to be very, very close to me and monitor everything that I do. I'm afraid with the current ones, I'm not doing that, and I've told them, I've said to my boss, if you want to fire me, you can fire me over that. It's not part of my work, and I'm not going to do it. I refuse to sit in one car with a female colleague.
It's very, I was saying, comforting to hear your story. Because in my line of work, I've actually said to young men, they must read that sexual harassment policy. They must understand it from A to Z. Because it's not only young men that get seduced by females or other males in the workspace. It's actually everyone seduces everyone. And unfortunately for men, it's very new for them. Till the day one when we entered this world, there was someone who wanted to seduce a female. Either your uncle, your grandpa, your neighbors, whatever. So women have grown to find ways of censoring and being vigilant. And I find that men actually get caught unaware. Because for them it's never been an issue that someone would want to sexually harass them. Don't know, maybe it comes from a perspective of born with privilege, therefore nothing will happen. But I've said this many times, that young men, old and young men, they must read that sexual harassment policy. Because sometimes we even take what we do at home and bring it to the workspace. And then it gets interpreted as harassment. For example, a nice thing. You compliment me today with my lipstick that, oh, what's wrong with this? I'm like, shy. I wear a nice thing the other day, you compliment me. And then the way you like, because in your culture it's easy. It's like kuzelindom. I'll speak in Zulu, kuzelindom, because it's allowed as a man, it's a privilege that you are born with. But you take exactly that privilege and bring it to work, it becomes sexual harassment. So I've always said, leave who you are outside. Because in your story, I can see spaces where you did what you thought it's possible to do, unaware that it would be turned into sexual harassment. And it was a shocker even to your system when you discovered that it could be twisted as sexual harassment, whereas it was your way of doing things every day from your perspective. So I'm very happy to have met you, and I want to invite you in other platforms, because that's exactly what I want young men and men to understand, that the ball game has changed. Women are in power. Women know what they want. They will grab it if you don't give it to them. And how do you protect yourself against it?
Wow, can you just tell us a little bit about what work you do? Where we can get hold of you?
Okay, so I now work for the Commission for Gender Equality. I joined them on the 1st of April.
Yeah.
But I have a long history as a women's rights and gender specialist, working in different countries and different sorts of things. So my work has always been on women's rights and gender, and coupled with development. So I work with gender from your business to your politics to your home to all spheres of life. I work with gender issues. So I recently moved to the Free State in May. So
We never know what you're doing though. We never know what you're doing though.
Because I've just joined the CGE.
No, but I'm just saying,
You can
like, if I put myself
find me.
no, I just want to let the public know. They hear that we gender activists. I'm like, I know my gender, everybody knows the gender. What are you activizing? You know, what kind of problems do you deal with? What kind of people do you help? Do you help with human trafficking? Do you get people, or do you help people at home who are having trouble with their families? Like, because things need to get personal. We need to have specific incidences that we can understand, because I don't know how you can help me,
Okay. My interest is on opening up spaces for women in the economy and the political spheres. That's my personal interest. But the nature of my work makes me to cut across any of those gender issues. So, yeah.
Oh, that sounds great, eh? Yeah.
I wanted to say that I hear Sam's story and I empathize with it. And also my sister from the CGE. But I kind of want to connect to something that you said earlier, that we're not here to vilify men, but I also want to my point of view is that we're also not here to vilify women. I think it's a great thing that women are taking a stand, and they're taking a stand and they're taking control of their own lives. And yeah, I forgot the rest that I wanted to say. Things more, but that's kind of like my main point, that a woman taking a stand, protecting herself, should not ever be seen as a bad thing.
You've got more stuff, yeah. Are you ready for more stuff?
I could break the tension a little bit with some boring legal stuff. So I think it might be interesting if we just go through, because there's a code of good practice when it comes to sexual harassment that the CCMA has issued. And they encourage all employers to incorporate the terms of this code of good practice into their sexual harassment policy. And I think it might be interesting if we just go through the definition of what is sexual harassment, especially because we're talking about things that are culturally accepted outside of work that might not be acceptable inside your workplace. So the definition is that sexual harassment is an unwanted conduct of a sexual nature. The unwanted nature of sexual harassment distinguishes it from behavior that is welcome and mutual, right? So sexual attention becomes sexual harassment if the behavior is persisted in, although a single incident of harassment can constitute sexual harassment. So the recipient has made it clear that the behavior is considered offensive, and the perpetrator should have known that the behavior is regarded as unacceptable. So it's basically three things. It must be persistent, but one incident can also constitute sexual harassment. The recipient must have said that this behavior is offensive, and the perpetrator should have known. So in Sam's position, because he was in a senior managerial position, there's case law that says if you're in a managerial position, there's almost like a higher standard that's placed on you because you should have known better, basically. There's also case law that says, so the Employment Equity Act says that you must report sexual harassment immediately. But what is immediately? So there's case law that says immediately basically means as soon as it is possible. Sexual harassment, when it happens to you, it is something that is traumatic. So whether it is, and people have different sensitivities. Some people are more sensitive to touching or having their personal space, somebody entering their personal space, or might interpret something that somebody has said as offensive, whereas somebody else might have a thicker skin. So what does immediately means as soon as it is possible for the victim to speak out. Okay. And when it comes to the perpetrator should have known better, when it comes to sexual harassment, it's a subjective thing. So the test that is applied is what this person did, was it subjectively offensive to this person? So it's about subjective feelings. Yes, and when the disciplinary proceedings go on, there are objective standards that are implemented, but the starting point is subjectively, did that person feel that this was offensive? Okay, and so, if you're a lawyer, you know that there's this rule in almost every area of the law that says take the victim as you find them, all right? So if you happen to work with somebody who's particularly sensitive, you must take your victim as you find them. Because I can say something to you and it'll be like, we'll laugh about it. But I might be in a particularly vulnerable place in my life and particularly sensitive at that time, and I might find it completely offensive. Just because I am in that particular space doesn't delegitimize what my subjective feelings. So that's just a little bit of boring legal stuff if anybody has questions.
Very interesting for both of them, eh? Very interesting.
Do you feel like you didn't know any better?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Got some questions? Can we start with you?
I just wanted to ask Sammy how she was attracted to this lady, because he mentioned that she was good looking. So I think usually people would also take advantage of the fact that they may find him attractive and thought maybe try to use it against you, or perhaps you do something unaware that it's inappropriate because you first of all attracted to the person. And the second issue is that I noticed that he's still very sensitive about the matter. He doesn't want to talk about it. It still pains him. It feels like somebody was trying to bring him down and all those things. So I just wanted to find out if would you ever consider speaking to someone about the issue, because it's been 3 years already and then you're still not okay with it. And I don't know when you're going to heal, because it also affects your work when you mentioned that you don't want to be anywhere close to your colleagues. You're no longer mentoring them. It's affecting your life. And I don't know if it also affects you in your family. I don't know. I just want to find out if there's anything like that.
Okay. I'm not too sure how to answer a question, but I'll be jumpy when I'm answering the question. Please feel free to ask again. The lady or my accuser, so to speak, like I said, in disciplinary hearings, my sexual preferences were put to the test. They were put to. I do not date skinny ladies at all. If I'm offensive, please. But okay, I do not date skinny people. My preference of a woman is a well-built woman. And the lady to me was not attractive at all. She was exactly half my daughter's age, and I would not date anybody like her. One, she was very tiny. She looked vulnerable. You would do things for her. You know, she was one of those people that would walk into the office and people would do things for her because of her age, because of her height, because of everything about her. You know, people would do stuff for her. She was not a sexual person, as in outgoing, that would dress in a different way to attract sexual attention to herself. So she was not in any way sexual. So personally, I was not attracted to her, and it's one of the things that was put to questioning. In terms of family, it has not affected me at all in terms of my family, because I had and I still have a lot of family support. Yeah. Sorry, what was the next question?
Your emotions, you're still not okay. You can't talk about it.
seek help?
Okay, that I'm not too sure about. It was a very traumatic experience for me. Legally, I was advised to accept guilt. I paid money for legal advice that told me to admit guilt for things I did not do. That's why I'm prepared to leave it, just to let the matter rest. Because my accuser was asked what she wanted. I asked her if it was my position, if it was anything, and at that time I sat down and I typed a resignation letter. And my boss tore it apart and he said, I've known you for this long and I'm not letting this stop here. So yeah.
What was the motive? You ever got to know what was the motive behind all of this?
I think I might be wrong. She was 19. She started in the workplace. She wanted an easy way out. I think. Saying it might have been. I don't know. Maybe she had that stigma of.
Did she want money from you?
Because he's in a managerial position. There he was with her in a car, or so maybe I don't know.
Okay, I came to know about my accuser's sexual past later, about 2 months when the matter had settled. A friend of mine that went to high school with me actually happened to have taught her slightly after matric, so he actually noticed her file on top of one of my shelves. So he asked specifically about that person because her file was written, had her name and surname. So he asked, is this lady, is she this, is she that? And I said, that's her, how do you know her? And he said, no, she comes from a very painful past. Her father, I'm not too sure if I'm just allowed to speak about that. Her father is sort of disabled and is actually, or was, abusing her sexually. So I don't know if I had anything to do with that or if she was venting out her anger. And it was so painful in the sense that her mother actually knew about it. So that's how I came to know about her sexual past from a guy that I went to school with. So, yeah.
What I'm curious about now, I mean, you answer me better. What are penalties for false accusations?
So we don't have penalties for false accusations.
So
All the Code of Good Practice says that employers must handle these complaints with sensitivity. So I think, maybe just because of my background, I think the policy or the code is very victim orientated. Because sexual harassment in the workplace is something that doesn't get spoken about a lot. Because mostly the complainants, there's a fear of speaking out, because there's a fear of victimization, a fear of reprisal. So they cannot possibly, in my opinion, they cannot possibly be, it cannot be an offense if it is proven that your accusations were false. You cannot then punish the victim because it is proven that the accusations were false. Because that would, in my opinion, this is really just my opinion, it would discourage other women from coming forward. Because what if this actually really did happen to you? But you're so scared because what if, my witnesses don't testify well enough and I'm unable to prove that this thing actually happened? Then I am the one that's going to get penalized. I'm going to get dismissed. So all the code basically says is there cannot be any further victimization of any accuser, and it must be handled in a very sensitive way so that the victims there's no fear of reprisal to the victims.
But then doesn't the role of the victim change? Doesn't the title of the victim change in the instance where the accusations were false? Like now they've proven that they're false. People are now saying that did not happen that way. Honestly, we saw it with our own eyes, and clearly then that is false. Then does that not make the initial defendant then the victim that needs to be protected now by the law?
I think a kind of safety net for people that are worried that women or people are vindictive and spiteful and want to lay false complaints that they know are baseless, is that there's an appeal process, right? So if in the disciplinary proceedings you are found guilty or not guilty, and whoever is unhappy with that decision, you have a review process, then you have an appeal process. So there's many safety nets built into the law to guard against false accusations like that. I hope all of us in this room would be very unhappy if we had a criminal justice system that criminalized rape victims after the accusers have been found not guilty. I don't think anybody would agree with that. It is basically the same principle.
In some of the cases that I've handled in my previous life, around sexual harassment cases, you will find that, at the end of the day, the victim is actually unable to prove it has happened. And we've actually went back to what evidence are you looking for? I am the evidence. Because remember, it's subjective. The fact that I'm unable to put blocks that make it really in the subjective eyes of the other people doesn't mean it has not happened. And remember the subjectivity of it, not as offensive, but for me, it's a whistle that brings up other things. In this case of this young woman, she saw this man who loves her like her father, but there was something he was not doing, and she wanted that thing to happen. Going to the victims, into the mind of the victim, she expected it to happen, and it got to a point where if it's not happening, why is it not happening? Because she is used to a father who hugs and go all the way. Why is this father figure in front of me not doing what I'm used to doing, to being done with? So there are many complexities of the young lady that actually now have been brought to fore. And if you had known about those before, maybe even the case would have been handled differently, because she was someone crying out of help, but then found ways of crying for help that were wrong. But then also going back to the victim not being able to provide evidence, even when there's no evidence, what normally also will happen is that there will be cases like 1, 2, 3, or 4. We can't all be accusing the same in the same organization. And there are cases where I had to write motivations that no, we have to look at Sam, and Sam must leave. Sam must be paid out and go. Because the fact that more than one woman are complaining about Sam, there's something that Sam is doing that is so technical that we are unable to catch him on and make it evidence enough for Sam to be dismissed on sexual harassment cases. So I'm not saying in your case, but I'm just saying around the victim. There's also a lot of literature around the mind of the victim and all these things. So yeah, it's a very complicated situation.
Sorry. I just want to ask, is the victim protected from having his or her sexual history discussed at a disciplinary hearing or during a trial? Is that because I know that there have been cases where that has been in contention? So for example, where the defendant then wants to bring evidence that the victim or the accuser is so-called has a sexual history, may have influenced her to falsely accused the defendant. So I just want to know, is there a law then protecting bringing that to light?
It's not, you're not supposed to bring that, because remember, I will make the case of Xposing. A lot of people came up and testified that Xposing was raped by this one, Xposing slept with that one. That didn't matter. The case was, this one has taken it without me giving it to them. I might have given it to those people, colorful as it is, but I did not allow the legislature to take it. So it is never evident enough. It's not evidence that should be considered, because also the circumstances have changed. So, and it would have really tainted Sam's case if he knew about it before. Because it would be like he's now saying, Vele, you used to it, so what's different now that I'm doing it? So it was by God's grace that he did not know it. But if he had brought it, that was going to make your case so difficult. Because it would look like you are doing it because you know she's really doing it to you.
Just to add on to what my sister said, sexual harassment is, like, historically, it's very difficult to prove. And it's not like sexual assault or rape where there's physical evidence, right? And just to be boring again, but the code mentions some forms of what is considered sexual harassment. And if you just listen to these, you'll see that it is very difficult to prove. It is very few people that will sit down and, note, and on the 1st of December at approximately 12:47, this man said this to me. It's very few people that do that, that can go, that have the capability to objectively view something and record it in order to protect themselves in the future. So just, if you just do me a favor and just listen to what the code says about what is considered sexual harassment. So unwelcome sexual innuendos, so things that are comments that have sexual undertones, suggestions or hints, sexual advances, comments with sexual overtones, sex-related jokes, insults or unwelcome graphic comments about a person's body or their appearance that is made in their presence or is directed at them, unwelcome or inappropriate inquiries about a person's sex life, unwelcome whistling that's directed at the person, and then non-verbal forms of sexual harassment is unwelcome gestures, indecent exposure, unwelcome displays of sexually explicit pictures or objects of that's porn, then also quid pro quo harassment. So basically where your colleague, your manager undertakes to influence your process of employment. So either you get that promotion or you're going to get that performance bonus or that kind of thing in exchange for a sexual favor. And then sexual favoritism, where people that respond to his sexual advances or sex-related jokes, that laughs at this joke, they get advantages that somebody who's not reacting doesn't get. So you see, with all these examples that the code makes, it's very difficult to prove, because how do I prove a sexual innuendo? How?
Yeah, we were talking about, I don't know how we got to talk about the sexual harassment when you were sitting there, but it's something that obviously it bugs me a lot. I've worked at 3 different companies, and every time I start out my new job, I always have to go into a trance, because the men are always offensive. It's not even like that I'm looking for it, because I keep away from the men, or the men that I work with, wherever, because I'm just too scared that they're going to make me feel uncomfortable, and I obviously I don't know what to do with it. I can't really go and report it, because I need the job, I need the money, I don't want to be that girl, oh yeah, she comes again, and I honestly, I just want to go to work and do my job and then go home. But it's so difficult, like people, talking about your body, making remarks about your body. I don't know what to do with that information, Hey, I was super hell man, I don't know how to translate that in English. Yes, hell to hold on that man. I don't know what to do with that. It makes me uncomfortable, and it not only makes me uncomfortable, it pisses me off, because I'm there to work, And he said something about, dressing in a sexual nature. I don't understand that either, because I wear this type of clothes to work, and my current job I wear shorts because I'm in the field, and then I went to my boss, and she's a lady, and I'm like, what, I'm having problems with the guys. What is the, do you have a sexual harassment clause or whatever? And then she said, well, if you keep wearing those shorts, then they're not going to stop making advances at you and stuff like that. And stuff like that really hurts me, because what do you do, and where do you go, and how do you say it? Because here they say that they're against sexual harassment, but I have to watch the way I dress, I have to watch the way I sit. No, it's true. It's true.
No, it's very true. That is why I was talking about why sexual harassment in the workplace and things like that is so rarely reported. Because you don't want to be that girl. You don't want to be the troublemaker. Because and that's already a form of victimization, because now you have to face this every day, because you can't speak up, because you're afraid of being blacklisted. What I can say to you is speak to my sister from the CG. Speak to her. Yes, there is your saving grace.
Yes, I just wanted to say, like you said, it's very subjective. And if it's your boss, it's he says, she says. And how are you going to prove that for one? Number two, he's in a position of power. You are the subordinate. And we all know how cases of sexual offense or rape usually go about. Like, you saw how, in the way that I saw him, it's the same, he's emotional. You're not just going to be, it's not just going to be easy for you to say, this is what happened, this is what happened, and this is what happened. That's why many people don't report it, like you indicated. People don't even report these cases. And then the issue that you also mentioned was to say that one should report it within a reasonable time, something like that, immediately or something like that. But then you get rape cases that get reported 10 years later. It's the same with sexual harassment, in my opinion. It's not something that's very easy to come out and say, this is what has happened to me. Especially in a workspace, people fear victimization. And whether we know our rights or not, the fact remains that it's a terrible position to be in. And then you have that fear in your heart to say, how am I going to go forward? How am I going to talk? How am I going to come across? You know, it's reality that is out there.
And there's so many factors at play, because I don't want to be perceived as that girl, as that troublemaker at work. I need my job because I need the financial resource. There is an inherent power dynamic when it comes to sexual harassment, because it is a lot of the times it is your superior that does it. Not necessarily, but that makes the situation a lot more difficult. The only thing that I watched a video earlier about sexual assaults on university campuses, and how girls are not reporting sexual assaults on campuses because of the fear of not, especially young ones, first years. You know, they want to be the cool girl. They don't want, there's an element of shame because I was drinking in any event and I was at this party, and you know, I kind of like the guy to begin with, even though he did do this thing to me, and I'm just going to keep quiet. So it's very, very difficult. But what this video basically, these people introduced is sort of like a website and app where girls can just go and they can just record their experience. And especially with repeat offenders, if you mentioned Michael did this to me, and Michael did this to another girl, and she also reported it on this website, then there's a match and it automatically sends it to the police. It's a great thing. It's a great TED Talk. It's on TED Talks. But my actual advice, like practical advice, would be to any person, female, male, whatever gender, if you have experienced this, take control of your own protection. Record it, write it down, write every single thing down. You might not have the courage to report it now, but maybe later on you will have the courage to report. But in the meantime, protect yourself, take control of your own protection, and just record what happened, what transpired. Because sexual harassment is very difficult to prove, and a lot of the times all you have is yourself and your memory. So just protect your memories. Even if you never share that, at least you have it somewhere.
Some of these guys, last week or somewhat, I was getting out of a meeting, and it's like a couple of us coming out of the hall. So this one guy that likes to make these comments, you know how when you get mugged, they surround you and then you can't see what they're doing. He did that to me. He looked at me, and then it was the wall, and then he looked at me, and so the other ones were passing by, and then he spanked me. Oh, so people couldn't see that he spanked me. There I was like, what is going on now, And then he just passed, and I just stood there like, I don't know what, So they actually have a way. Some of the guys have a way of doing stuff without being seen, or also to catch you, when you're not really, at your best, you're still like processing all the information from the meeting, so it's very difficult. When now I must go and say he spanked me, and then they're going to be like, Emma, we're all walking out of the hall. When did this happen?
The other thing that you need to remember is, other than that employers are obliged to handle these incidents with sensitivity, there's also obligation to handle it with confidentiality. So what transpired is only between you and the person that you reported to. So it would be a very close thing. And you also have the option
of it going, if you choose to report it, that it, that information doesn't get shared with anybody else. And then you have the option of having a formal or informal process. Like the informal process would be addressing it with that person, and the formal process would be disciplinary hearing, all of those steps.
I think maybe also. Oh, sorry. Well,
Good.
oh no. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to maybe just to go back to the code of good practice. The code. I think the emphasis should be placed perhaps in the word unwanted advances, because I think often that it's not expressed that it doesn't matter, regardless of whether it's tacitly or expressly, that it's unwanted advances. And I think women should be perhaps equipped in the workplace that it must be made known. Actually, everybody should know that regardless of whether the person is going to take the comments or say something, that it should that there's still a violation. So I think that's often what happens. Because women are silent, it doesn't mean that they accept it or that they want it. Because that's often what the defendants say. They'll say, well, she didn't say anything. She didn't make it very clear that she didn't like it when I spanked her. So I think that's also perhaps what.
Why would I want to go to work to get spanked?
Well,
That's what makes sense about these things to me. Why would I want to go to work to get spanked? Why would I want to go to work to look for a boyfriend? Why would I want to go to work for somebody? I just want to go to work. I just want to do my job and go home and get paid. That's it. If I wanted a boyfriend, I would go outside to look for a boyfriend, because that's what work is. That's where you go and earn your money, and that's the thing that frustrates me the most, is that it's a workplace. There's no place to make comments about someone's body or someone's ass or someone. It's inappropriate.
Yes, I'm sitting here, I'm sitting here and listening to all of this is very, and I want to offload, but with everything that's been said in your two experiences, and I want to know, are we allowed to do that?
Offload?
Yes.
What do you mean? How do you do this offloading?
Oh no! This is the thing is, the same bodies that are in the workplace are the same bodies that exist in a society where everyone else who's not even at work is. And this society, it has a certain structure to it. Because I was listening to your story, and I was listening to your story as well. And in your story, you did describe the accuser, and I see you, and I see your structure. And I see you, and I see your structure too. And these figures are figures that you bump into every day. Yeah. Yes. And now, and what I actually want to offload is, like, where does it start to pay me? Because now, you at your workplace, you are at a senior position, and you did mention that you are a father too at home, and your body is bigger. Like, physically you are bigger, and physically because you are a man, you're stronger, and yes, and the accuser is different. And when you actually received this accusation, where did it start paining? Like, did it start paining with you being a senior, or the thought of her being your daughter being half her age, or you being a father at home and your marriage, or such things? And how do you go about even with your pain at a workplace with all these rules that are frustrating, but with outside the workplace, in the society, because now you are the same person who has to be in the society, and it's ill, and still you have to operate in this society and try not to just dirtify it further, as dirty as it is, and even your expression, your body, you expressing yourself with your body, and not being able to do it at a workplace because it makes certain people uncomfortable, and because it makes certain people uncomfortable, you cannot go about your grievances. Like, so where does it start paining, and how do you go about with this pain, and how do you, I think, trans from work to the society?
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Where did this
Before
come
you
in?
leave, I want to ask this.
Yeah.
Socially speaking, or psychologically speaking, him and the lady are both victims of circumstance, in the sense that the lady has a history that she went through and she became a victim because of that. and Brasem became a victim because she was a victim first. Now the question is, seeing as to how he's uncomfortable talking about the whole situation 3 years later and whatnot, was there ever a point where he met with the lady and they had a conversation about the incident? Because in the sense that he's not okay because she was not okay. You know, there was never a point where he understood her situation until someone else said, you know, her background is not good. So after the meeting, after everything happened, I mean, this could have been facilitated, but was there a point where they talked, this is the situation. He was being Brasem as Brasem is, but she understood Brasem in a different way. And they had two different ideological perspectives about the whole situation. But had they talked first or afterwards, I think Brasem would be in a position where he's okay with the whole thing, you know? Because it's like, in a sense, I don't want to say he's not forgiving himself. Yeah, but it's something that's still there. And if psychologists would say that if two people that interact in a bad way were to talk, healing would somehow follow, especially for Brasem, and to a point for the lady as well. So yeah, I was asking, has there ever been a point where you guys talked?
Okay, thank you for your question. I'm going to answer her questions first because I'm needing to get back to work. When I started, I said, I don't want you to be put in a particular bracket. If you say to me, I'm a victim, I'm going to smack you. I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay. As people, it's normal to put people in certain categories and say, this is a victim and this is... Guys, I'm not here to be labeled or identified as a victim or anything. Like I said, I'm just here to relate my story exactly the way it happened. And without wanting to add anything to it or to subtract anything. Of course, because I cannot recall exactly, I cannot relate it exactly the way it happened. I did meet with her and she walked with my pride on her heels. She laughed at me. Okay, your question, where did it start paining? It started paining, the shock started when my boss called me and actually wanted to see me immediately. What pained me was when she stood there and cried tears and said, that's what happened. And she cried tears, and her physical structure sort of appealed to a lot of people, and she automatically was a victim in every way. You know? You'd feel shame for her. Like I said, she was a person that people would do stuff for. She was an automatic victim, just as she appeared. Things would happen to her. People would mark her. Somebody would make sexual advances to her. That's how she appeared. She appeared tiny, she appeared vulnerable, she appeared like she needed stuff to be done for her. That's how she appeared. And that's how I'm answering your question, my brother. And
drugs, if you're on drugs when you got raped or when you were harassed, does your claim become like illegitimate?
No.
Doesn't matter, like even if you were like on Viagra when you got like harassed.
I need to ask that, like, what's the definition of drugs?
No, it's just if you were intoxicated or you were on drugs and you were sexually assaulted. I know that there's something that the defense will pick on because then it impacts on your credibility as a witness. But that's about
it's about credibility. Yeah. And in South Africa, we don't have a jury system. Right? No. We always watch the American movie like, somebody decided to go to her. There's actually one guy who decides. If he's in a good mood, if he got laid that morning, by whatever, he decides to do it or not. I don't know, there's a thing. Catfishing. Does anybody know what catfishing is?
I'm not catfishing MTV.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about catfishing?
No, I don't know.
I know what catfishing is, because I live online because I'm a blogger. It means when you pretend you are not who you are. And then you say that you put a profile picture of yourself, and then you like make friends with people who are gonna like you, and then all of a sudden you're making arrangements to meet in person, but you're a predator, you know? And then that's called catfishing. But there's two ways of catfishing. There's catfishing where you're like a disgusting old man and you're pretending to be a 16-year-old boy, and you're luring and you're like a pedophile. And then you're catfishing. But I recently learned, because I know in my circles, I know somebody who's catfishing as a guy pretending to be a girl to get airtime from guys and getting WhatsApp numbers. Oh, I'm so pretty. Here's a picture of myself. Oh, I like you. And then as soon as you want to meet up with this individual who I know very well, then the next thing he just like blocks you. That's catfishing. What's it?
Sexual.
Asexual. Does anybody know what asexual is? Asexual. We're all asexual. I don't have all the answers, hey? I don't have a PhD in sexology. I don't. They must give me a physical divine PhD. But asexual basically means we're all sexual beings, but it doesn't mean that just because the only sexual way to be is either sexual activity. You can practice your sexual beingness by practicing not having sex, you know, and it's a legitimate sexuality, you know, because now the options are I have sex with men and women or whatever I want, but now there's no sexuality of not having sex. That's what being asexual is. And apparently also technically, I'm not quite sure I can be corrected, it actually means you're not aroused by either sex, by either, you know, beast or angel. You just got no sexual drive. So I don't know if it's medical or not, but from what I know, that if you're asexual, you're just choosing not to have sex.
But I also read the other day that if you're asexual, it doesn't mean that you don't have romantic feelings towards people. It's just that you don't choose to express those romantic feelings with sexual activity.
Yeah, sexual energy. You can use energy transfer. What's that?
Cisgender.
Cisgender.
Yeah.
Does anybody know?
Cisgender.
I was thinking about it earlier. Somebody asked me if I'm gender non-conforming. It just means that I agree with my body that I'm a female. Because it's actually a privilege now, especially with trans visibility coming out. That because if you are trans, it kind of means, like I'm saying, that you were born with particular genitals, but you grew up not feeling that way. And it's not that you're even gay or you lesbian or it just means that, gosh, I was assigned the wrong body. So being cisgender is the opposite of that. It kind of means that, hey, God gave me this and I kind of like it, I'm gonna rock this. Yeah.
Parents.
I
know what parents are, but because their roles are modeled every day, but I really don't know what parents are. And I wrote this actually. This is what I think when I think of parents. Second chance obsessed freaks, overprotective dream killers. They know everything and they are always right.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Can you please repeat that again? Yeah, someone overprotective.
Second chance obsessed freaks.
People that don't want to die, so they have kids, so they can
want to keep their life.
Assign your child to beauty pageants. Wow.
Yeah, because your face got burned when you're young. Yeah, you have a second chance.
Or you can't study medicine, or you can't do acting, study medicine.
So now you're raising a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
African.
Oh.
It's quite a hectic time to be African now.
Okay.
What's your definition of being African?
I was asking you.
No, I'm curious. I'm here because I want to learn from everybody.
My definition of being African, living in Africa. That makes you an African.
Living in Africa.
Born in Africa.
Born in Africa.
They're in America, hence they call themselves African Americans, not Africans.
Because you say being African is being in Africa, so what about them? They're not in Africa.
They're African Americans because they're in America.
But some of them just want to be African.
it's fine, they can come to Africa and then we open our bodies and legs. Yeah, so, and I don't know if I can say being an African is being black, beautiful, proud, because you can get people from different cultures, different backgrounds being Africans. Yeah, it's all about the way you identify yourself. Yes, it's all about your...
Who was that author with the promise? Who was the author who said Africa was born in him, that's why he's African. He wasn't born in Africa, you know.
Funny enough, can I just say something about the African thing? I was recently filling in a form, and where it says nationality, instead of black, because I get bored of the whole black, okay, I put African.
Yeah, I also stopped doing
Yeah.
African. I put an African. I don't view myself as being black because I don't look black.
So can I not be white and be an African?
Called European Africans.
What do you want to say about being African?
Well, I just think it's anybody who is in love with Africa. That's all it is. Like anybody who's in love with Africa is African.
Thank you very much for coming, for being here. And there's an after party at Xposing African restaurant. And we're gonna see some sex toys and some lubrication, some vagina shrinking cream.
Yes! Why would you want to shrink it? Why? Can I ask something? Why do you want to shrink it?
You know, I think the wrong word.
Yeah,
I
no,
think the wrong word.
it makes it tight. It makes it feel.
But then it's trying to really